Okay, I'd like to introduce Curtis Davis. He's here with Renewal by Anderson. He wants to provide a presentation about composite windows uh, for our interest and maybe extending where we allow them and just their general validity and value and how they have changed since our last consideration.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me here. Can you guys hear me? Can everyone hear me okay? Pull it closer. Okay. Is that better? All right. Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for your time, and for giving us some consideration on this matter. Um, Basically, my reason for being here is because, just like you, I love old houses. I think they're the coolest thing in the world. I've lived in them, I've fixed them up, and it's just an amazing part of our heritage, and that's what drives me to be here. So, let's see. Can we start from the beginning there? Is there a way to get to the top? Or maybe just flip through? All right. Well, just a little bit brief history, just kind of start big and get more to the point. Anderson, we were a 121-year-old window company, and we're ninth generation private family owned. Basically, we um, you know, have had a major impact on almost every innovation in Windows for the past 120 years. Renewal by Anderson, the part of the company I work for, is 29 going on 30 years old now. And the idea of what we do is we take Anderson's best window, we measure people's old houses, we then make a custom window to the 16th of an inch, install it with our own hands, and then we guarantee it with some of the longest lasting warranties in the industry. So, that being said, um, here's our factory. A little bit of success is, we've spent 25 years building the 700,000 square foot facility. Next year, we're opening our second facility, which is also 700,000 square feet. So we're literally doubling our capacity after 25 years. We cover 100 locations all throughout the U.S. This is our team, so we're going to mostly be talking about the product materials and the design. But one thing I wanted to hit on before it gets forgotten is we learned, and this is why we do what we do. It doesn't matter how well built a window is, if it's not installed correctly, it's all for nothing. So we take a lot of pride in our teams. We have 12 going on 20. We're covering Salmon, Idaho to Joseph, Oregon, everywhere in between. Boise Historical District is somewhere in the middle here. And a little bit about me. I actually grew up in a house. Every single window in my grandparents' house was an Anderson PermaShield window. So they had these windows for 40 years, sold it, and now they never need to worry about their bills as they age. So, and then the thing that specifically led me to come here today is I have a friend who is a property manager. This is his house on Hayes Street that he manages. I believe there's around 5 tenants who live here, and the tenants couldn't open their windows. And so he contacted me and he said, "Hey, look, like this is a safety issue. We need to be able to open these windows. Can you help me?" Looked it up. Sorry, I can't. It's in the Hayes Historical District. So and that leads to the question, well, why not? What why can't we have this window? Like what's going on? And so it kind of led me down this path. Just doing some research as, this is the document I'm referring to. If I'm referring to the wrong document, please let me know. But basically, it says that we're allowed to use wood and wood-clad windows in the historical district. So that's perfectly sensible. Every restoration book you'll read says wood or wood-clad, so nothing out of the ordinary there. But then, like as I look at our YouTube video online, and that kind of gives more guidelines about this, it says wood, and then wood-clad, and then fiberglass. And that really struck me because fiberglass is a much more modern material. It's something that Renewal by Anderson, after 30 years, we actually just started integrating fiberglass in some of our products last year. And I just thought, wow, that's really interesting that, I view wood and one clad as more of a conservative choice for a historical district. I view fiberglass as kind of like more of a liberal, kind of outgoing choice there. So I just thought, man, here's old growth lumber from an old wood window sash. Here's a clad window. Here's fiberglass. To me, Fibrex, which has wood in it, is something that would fit in that product category. Um, And then obviously right now the rules state that it's really not allowed. It does allow case by case with non-contributing houses that are on secondary facades. So the big thesis of what I'm thinking about here is fiberglass being allowed. It's a man-made material, is glass and resin. There's nothing wood or aluminum about it, which is what's in the codes right now. And obviously you don't allow for vinyl windows, which I agree with, point taken there. But basically what I want to do real quick is just kind of give a brief history. You probably know most of this stuff already, but when we first started making windows, we were taking wood from virgin forest. That's how these houses were built, with this amazing lumber. That's why they're so cool. And then as time has gone on, now we only have mostly tree farm wood. It's a poor quality material. The type of wood that gets used in windows here in the US these days is usually soft southern pine, and it's very prone to rotting, and it warps, and it's very porous. So in that period of time, right around World War II or after World War II, everyone converted over to aluminum windows, and the big benefit there was, hey, no maintenance, no more scraping and painting of these wood windows. And in that time, Andersen was paying attention to these trends in the window industry. And we went to Europe. We spent what would be equivalent today of hundreds of millions of dollars to come up with a very advanced manufacturing process where we wrapped wood with vinyl. During that period, we actually developed the hollow vinyl window and patented it and shelved it. We never ever produced or installed a vinyl window. And that is really significant because once that patent expired in the 80s, that's when the window industry took over with vinyl windows. But the benefits for us of this was we had a product that it was no maintenance, it was resistant to the elements, and you could seal the corners. So I can use this as an example, how the corners are sealed on a vinyl window. That was the big benefit. And then right around that time in the 60s, Marvin came out with this aluminum clad window. And the thought process there was, hey, you don't want that plasticky Andersen window. Get this metal window with wood on the inside. This is a better product. The downside is when you have aluminum that's going into wood and it's a soft, lower quality wood, it tends to rot. So aluminum is a conductor, not an insulator. The hot and cold makes the wood expand and contract, and then it traps moisture. So if you think about like a soda can, you pull it out of the fridge, starts to sweat. That's what happens with these windows. And ironically, every company or almost every company that's made an aluminum clad window has had major class action lawsuits. In some advanced wisdom in the 50s, our company had the wherewithal to not build that product. And that's what's made us the biggest window manufacturer to this day, is building products that protect our company and protect our customers' homes. Just to give you an example, so this was an American designed clad window. This is one from Germany. In Germany, they have all these rules about how windows have to be built. And you can see how the aluminum is thicker and it doesn't touch the wood, and the wood itself is a hardier wood. So these are products that have a little bit more success than clad. Going back, like here's an American window, clad window. This is probably something that would be accepted here in the historical district. But you can see the softer wood, and it's just got some thin wrap aluminum over it. And then this ends up being the result in worst case scenario is the rotting. Not only does the frames rot, but then if you think about double pane glass, you've got two pieces of glass, you got a seal that goes around it. As soon as one piece of glass shifts, that whole seal is broken and then the glass fails. So in my opinion, this is not something that enhances the appearance of a home or a district. And that's the one downside. I didn't want to talk bad about other companies or anything like that. So I wanted to talk about Andersen E-Series. That's from a company called Eagle Windows. And as they were going out of business, Andersen purchased them. And now we sell their windows at Home Depot. And this is a high quality clad window. It's a 3-page warranty, just kind of giving you an example here. And if you look at the end of that warranty, it specifically says, hey, you can buy this window. You can't sue us if it damages your home. No class action lawsuits. And so basically it's a buy at your own risk product. And by comparison, the warranty that comes with this window that we produce and install, it's a one-page warranty. It's really simple. There's even space at the bottom that you can take notes if you wanted to. And if you look at those two paragraphs, what they're saying is that we guarantee the performance of the glass and the frame for the next 2 decades from failure. Okay. Just to give you a little back and forth, this is at one of my customers' houses. We were going around replacing all of her old Andersen windows. So there's a PermaShield on the one side, her new Fibrex window on the other. And here's some close-ups. So you can see how the finish over time has failed. It's just kind of looking splotchy, but the window itself hasn't failed. Just looking old. And then that's her new Fibrex window. And then this is how, just to talk about how the process is built. This is how we do our Fibrex windows. So the whole thought process here is I think we have about 8 facilities. Every one of our manufacturing sites is a zero waste facility. And what we do is we take all the leftover wood and the sawdust and we collect all that. And then we take leftover vinyl and we put it all together. So it's recycled wood, recycled vinyl, and we combine the two. And we're not just gluing them together. This is actually combined at a molecular level, and we're submitting these two materials to heat and pressure. So we create pellets, and then we heat that up, and we push it through a press and create all these different shapes, kind of like something like this, to make whatever shapes we need to make the windows and trim that are all Fibrex. I'll just set that there. The way I kind of explain it is if you think about like mummifying like a body in Egypt, that's kind of what we're doing. We're mummifying those wood fibers to preserve them. So the end result is we get something that we try to make it look as authentic as possible to an old wood window, but without the rotting issues. And that's the big benefit. There's also a few other benefits. So sometimes like an easy thing I've heard is that like our window looks plasticky. I don't think it does. But there's a big difference between vinyl and a wood composite window. And the biggest problem with vinyl is that it expands and contracts, and it's a lot. So this is a 20-degree day in McCall. And if you look closely at this window, you can't see the whole thing, but it's a really long window. And as it has contracted in the cold weather, you can see how it actually rips some of the trim off. It used to be up against that trim. You see that huge gap there where actually some of the trim was separated in the process. Here's another house in McCall. This is a 6-year-old window, and it's a triple pane vinyl window. And all that weight, the vinyl was not able to support all that weight, and it warped in the hot and cold of those tough weather conditions. So here's just a quick chart showing the expansion rate of vinyl. You can see it's off the charts. Whereas our Fibrex material, if you look at materials like pine or aluminum, our Fibrex material is much closer in the expansion rate of a material like that. And these are things that are allowed in the historical district. So another thing is just appearance-wise. Fiberglass has a certain appearance to it. These are actually products that we make. These are different cutout sections of our door because we use aluminum and fiberglass and Fibrex in our door systems. And you just look at the surface, the fiberglass has this kind of woven, kind of spun appearance. Sometimes it can kind of have a webbed appearance, kind of like the texture of duct tape. Whereas our Fibrex material is a smooth surface. And the reason for that is because we're using a permanent acrylic that we bond to the material while it's being manufactured. So this is a maintenance-free material. You can have light or dark colors or anything in between. As you can see, this is a darker color window. And the big thing is when you have a darker colored window, the surface temperature is a lot hotter, usually about 90 degrees hotter. We guarantee it from fading all the same with no requirements to maintain the surface. And then the last thing, or one of the last things I wanted to touch on real quick is just the actual designs. So moving from the material itself to the way we design the window. So most old houses have a wooden pocket, and basically I define a wooden pocket as just an old window frame that's built into the structure of the house. It's part of the wall. Modern windows get installed on the outside of a house. In old construction houses, they get installed inside the wall in that wooden pocket. And so we actually designed this window from the factory to be able to fit in there perfectly. It's a 4-inch opening, or it's a 4-inch depth. Typically, a wooden pocket is about 4 1/4, so it gives us just enough space to insulate. And as you can see, all we're taking off when we install this window is we're just taking out the old sashes, taking off a little piece of wood stop, and then just putting a new piece of wood around the inside, and that's it. Another thing is the slope. So we can actually order the window built from the factory with a slope that matches the sloped angle of the sill of these houses. And so here's some before and afters. And then another design element I want to throw out there is our mortise and tenon joinery. So if you think about the corners of like say a clad window or a fiberglass window, they're always mitered. It's a diagonal line at the corner. Our double hung and our glider windows are built with mortise and tenon style joinery to replicate that authentic look of an old wood window. And then this is something that's really huge. We can make any custom grill you could imagine. We could literally do Mickey Mouse's face on here if you wanted. And I was talking to a contractor friend who, he actually likes to work on historical homes. He's lost jobs because he was not able to provide a certain style. In his case, it was the diamond style pattern of grills. So not only do we have all these standard styles, but we can make anything else as well. And it's very easy. I didn't realize how spoiled I was until I was talking to this friend of mine. So I included these photos in the letter I wrote to you. I just think this is a beautiful window. We do allow for wood, but the wood is only on the inside. And what's going on there is we're wrapping our Fibrex material in a real wood wrap. So it's basically a veneer, but it's real wood. You can sand it, stain it, paint it, just like any other wooden product because it is wood. But the benefit is you don't have any rotting. And then some of the requirements call for depth and different dimensional requirements. So our window meets all those requirements. We can do any ratio of the sash patterns. And then the last thing I wanted to tell you, this is just a story about my customer, Jan. So she lives on State Street. She's just outside of the historical districts. And her house, I believe, is built in 1914, 1915, something like that. She's a nurse. She's a single mom. She put her daughter through college. And over the past 10 years, she has had us replace every single window in this otherwise historic home. It's not in the districts, but it's a very historic home still. And just some close-ups. It's hard to capture the interior with the lighting because it's so bright. But with that wood interior that you can sand and paint and stain, she was able to perfectly match it up to the original straight grain pine that was in her house with all the trim she already had. That's her kitchen window. And then this is the before and after of her street facing window. This is covered up with a storm window, and I think it actually takes away from the appearance of the home. And then this is after. And then these are some of my coworkers. This is in Washington. This is a house that's on the National Registry of Historical Places. And this is the before, and that's the after. And this is one of my customers in Salmon, early 1900s home. He bought it. It was all vinyl. The top windows were original wood, and it was unlivable. We can completely transform that top part, and then eventually we're going to do the bottom part for him too. And then these are just a few more photos of other houses we worked on. So this is a Queen Anne house, and it had old vinyl windows in it, and it was really falling into disrepair. And we looked at the old photos, matched it up exactly, and just completely transformed this house for this homeowner. Lots of green initiatives. I mean, pretty much everything we do, we get these incredible awards for our sustainability. There's that saying that the greenest house is the one that's still standing, and we feel the same way about windows. Make a window that lasts as long as possible, and that beautifies the historical district. It also enables families to not only put their resources into windows, but other things as well for their house. So there's just a little more information about us. So anyways, that's all for there. What kind of questions do you have for me?
So are you saying that, I appreciate the presentation
Yeah.
as well, and I think Anderson windows are awesome. But, so are you being told that you're not allowed to put these in because of the language of the requirements? Because the composite windows, like kind of Marvin Ultrex and that sort of thing seems to be pretty standard getting installed in the city.
So our experience is every time we've submitted a project, it's been turned down. And we've had various answers. What we were told that the most recent one I heard was that because it's not a solid wood product, it's not allowed. So is there any reason why if we were to bring a project to you, that you would have any reservations against using something like this?
I can clarify if I may.
Yeah.
Composite materials are allowed in secondary and tertiary, so to speak, elevations, things like a garage, ADU, structure at the rear, and like I say, the secondary and the rear elevation. So let's say you're facing a corner street. This is where the weirdness of us having
Mhm.
exceptions for where they can be accepted can come into play. So if you're in a corner lot, then
Mhm.
that would be the primary elevation, and then that side street, whatever is visible from the public right of way, could not be composite, but other windows can be a composite material, which Fibrex is.
So like going back to that house on Hayes Street, it's right on a corner there, Hayes and 13th. Would that project be accepted?
In the current situation with the points that I outlined before, it would not be accepted to
Yeah.
use that material on any elevation visible from a public right of way,
Yeah.
from the street or the side street.
Yeah.
As we stand now, that's where we're at with this, maybe is a further consideration of, do
Yeah.
we expand where we allow composite materials to be all elevations?
Mm-hmm.
It's something for the commission to consider.
Mr. Jarvis, what's the process to do that?
I guess, we would modify the guidelines and it would go through a commission meeting for approval, the usual process, and finalized by the city council.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be, pardon me for interjecting, a fairly rigorous process that would probably involve the neighborhood associations as well and their input, as well as the commissions. I don't know. We haven't updated the guidelines since I've been on the commission, so I don't know
That's
exactly what it
correct.
looks
And-
like, but.
And my thought is, since that's a thing of many things that we would want to update in the guidelines, like personally, the word generally kind of is bothersome. And there's
Mm-hmm.
other things that we could do and look at. So as part of a comprehensive revision of the guidelines, I think this is something that should be and could be considered. And of course, it being a public hearing, there would be public participation in the entire process.
Mr. Chair, if I may. Could you tell me when Fibrex started being installed? How many years ago roughly
Yeah.
that was?
So we developed it in 1991. We put 30 patents on this material, and we started installing it in 1995. So this is why we stand behind this product and guarantee it as thoroughly as we do, because every year we go back and we take out 20-year-old windows from our customers, give them new windows, lucky customer, and then we lab test them and submit them to rigorous testing. And so it's through that testing that confirms that we can do this. So it's more than, we've basically been making this since we've had it since, now I got to do some math, but that's 25 years, right? So, or 35 years. So, that's why we can stand behind this the way that we do.
With that, for consideration of time for the meeting starting at 6 o'clock, we'll have to call that a wrap. Thank you very much for coming.
Mr. Chairman, just run through the agenda real fast since we're about to start the meeting here, just in terms of how the hearing should proceed. We will hear item number 1. We would recommend item number 2 for the consent agenda. And we will hear item number 3.
Good evening. We are citizen volunteers appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. Any decision made tonight may be appealed to the city council, provided that the appeal is filed within 10 days of this hearing. In order to file an appeal, you must have given written or oral testimony at tonight's meeting. So that's why it's important to give your name and address when you testify tonight. We utilize a consent agenda. This means that if the applicant agrees with the staff report and if there is no public opposition, the item will be placed on the consent agenda. All items that are placed on the consent agenda are approved with one motion without further public comment. For items not on the consent agenda, we will hold a full public hearing in the order just detailed a few minutes ago with staff, applicant, neighborhood association, and then the public testimony. Thank you for attending tonight. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Maroney. Montoto.
Here.
Malloy.
Here.
Otter.
Here.
Parks.
Here.
Owens.
Here.
Sales.
Here.
Moore. 6 present, 2 absent.
So with a quorum, we'll move forward with our agenda. Minutes acceptance. Are there any comments or corrections to the Historic Preservation Commission work session minutes or commission meeting minutes from March the 25th of 2024? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the Historic Preservation Commission work and meeting minutes from March 25th, 2024.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Montoto.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Otter.
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
Owens.
Aye.
Sales.
Aye.
All in favor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving to the consent agenda. It's been proposed that item number 2 on our agenda this evening, DRH 24-00066 at 1016 North 13th Street, be placed on the consent agenda. Is the applicant present? Thank you. Are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report? They indicate in the affirmative. Is there anyone present to testify in opposition? I don't have anyone on the list. And seeing none, could I then have a motion to establish the consent agenda with item number 2?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move to put DRH 24-00066 on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Montoto.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Otter.
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
Owens.
Aye.
Sales.
Aye.
All in favor. Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Item number 2 is approved on the consent agenda. If you would like to hang around and watch the rest of the meeting, you're welcome to do so, but otherwise you're free to go. Thank you. All right, moving into our items to be heard this evening. First item on the agenda is DRH 24-00062 at 808 East Jefferson Street. We'll now hear from staff.
Here's the aerial map that shows where the property is located on the east end. And this is the site plan showing the location of the ADU and the parking pad. This is the floor plan of the ADU. And provided here are the elevations. To give a context of where it is, here are photographs of the backyard and the front and the sides of the property. This proposed structure will be 1 story in height with a height to the peak of 14 feet 6 inches. The existing residence on the property is a 1-story structure. That height is 13 feet 3 inches to the peak. The guidelines strongly encourage detached structures to not exceed the height of the primary residence, and the proposed structure is just 1 foot 3 inches taller, which staff feels is acceptable. The proposed design uses gable roofs like the primary residence. The proposed structure features lap siding, which is congruous to the district. The elevation states that the siding will match the house. Staff has conditioned the approval to ensure that appropriate materials are used in case the existing siding on the residence is not an allowed material for new construction, replacement, or addition in the historic district. The proposed structure is below 1,000 square feet and is 22 feet in height, and therefore it does comply with the full setback requirements of the zone. This building may have a 5-foot rear setback per our code. The parking pad will need to be modified slightly to allow for a 22-foot backup space, and that has been conditioned. With that, staff recommends approval and will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff?
Can you just go over if it's contributing or non-contributing?
This is non-contributing.
Thank you.
Any further questions for staff? Great, thank you. With that, we will now hear from the applicant.
Sure what you want me to say.
Well,
Dorothy
start with,
Snowball.
name and address. That'd be great.
I live at 1015 East Washington. 808 East Jefferson is also a home I own. My son lives there. The proposed idea for this is my son has seizure disorders and is it not working? Oh, okay. So he has Parkinson's disease. And right now I'm his support person, though I don't live with him. I live 4 blocks away. But I'm getting older and he's going to need help. And so didn't want anybody to live with him. So we thought this idea of building this ADU in the backyard for a caregiver to be on the premises when he needs it, because he isn't able to cook for himself. He's having trouble dressing already. So that's my idea, and that's why I want to build this property.
Great, thank you.
You have any questions of me?
Any questions for the applicant? Great, thank you very much. Is there anyone representing the neighborhood association to speak? Yes, please come up.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Sheila Grisham. I live at 1204 East State Street, Boise 83712. Tonight, I am here to provide testimony for 808 East Jefferson on behalf of the East End Neighborhood Association. While we're very compassionate or very concerned about her son and him having somebody to be able to take care of him as he needs it, we are also concerned about the lot coverage. Right now, it's at 38%, and we were just wondering if there was anything that they could do to bring that down a little bit. And then also, we had a question about, there is a garage in the back already that exists there, and it's not clear as to whether that is coming down or if that is staying on the property. If it's staying on the property, then I think the lot coverage would be even more than the 38%. If we could get clarification on that, that would be great. Thank you so much for your time.
Any questions for the neighborhood association from the commission? Great, thank you. And to clarify, there will be a moment for you to rebut once all the other testimony is complete. So, great, thank you. I have someone else signed up on the sign-in sheet for this item. Aaron Wharton.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Erin Wharton. I am on the neighboring property, the northwest corner, and you need my address?
Yes,
right
please.
now? 310 North Strawn Avenue, Boise, Idaho, 83712. So there's 2 properties that border the western side of the property border. I'm the smaller property on the northwest side. I do have a lot of empathy for Ms. Snowball's situation. Her son is a great neighbor. I have concerns about the placement of the ADU in terms of the position relative to my home. And if you bear with me, so I get the notes right here. My first point of interest is the solar access for my house. Based on the position of the ADU, it's about 12 feet from my home. And based on the solar angles for the neighborhood, the height of the structure would completely block all solar access to my bedroom and my home office, where I spend about 17, 18 hours a day. So it also would block all solar access to my garden. The house extends 25 feet from the alleyway, the back of the property, which extend to all the portions of the backside of my lot. And because I have a narrow lot and I'm a contributing structure in this neighborhood, it would, my side yard is my front yard, if that makes sense. And so the viewpoint of what my front yard would be quite different from what it is now. The rear view angle of the ADU is just a single wall that will be essentially towering over my lot. I have concerns about a few of the other when I consult the design guidelines for residential historic districts, the other points of interest that I worry about are the position of the building and adding to the general spacing of the buildings. I would like to, if this is a feasible option, work with Ms. Snowball to hopefully. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
But we can't hear you back here at all.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. I would like to hopefully work with Ms. Snowball, and I would like to propose, if at all possible, that the ADU move to the eastern side of the lot. That would be in accordance with where that former garage is planned to be demolished and would generally add to that sort of structure and the size and the spacing that's outlined in the historical guidelines. I also would say that I would say the placement of this ADU, which I do support building, but I would like to also add that in the design guidelines on
Time.
5.6, is that it?
I believe we reached our time limit.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone who did not sign up but would like to testify on this item? Not seeing any. With that, Ms. Snowball, you are welcome to come up and rebut the statements, any statements that have been made.
Well, it's going to be a little difficult since I couldn't understand anything they were saying. You can't hear any sound back here. The first guy, I think, said something about a garage. There is no garage. There is a little tiny half shed there. And of course, that will be gone. That's where the parking pad will be. And I think that was her only objection, but that's all I could hear.
Okay.
If she objected to something else, could you tell me what it was?
I think that was one of the main items on the list is clarification if the existing garage or shed or whatever the structure is was going to remain
No.
or if it's coming
no.
down. Okay,
It's
because that would,
on the diagrams and everything, it's where the parking pad is.
Okay.
And it's not even, it's like a little half shed
Mhm.
that's sort of attached to the neighbor's
Mhm.
shed, and it's just going to be taken down. I mean, there's nothing even in it.
okay. And then your neighbor,
And I don't even know where she lives.
she is in I believe it's in the small lot to the
In the garage next
east,
door?
that would be right next to where you're planning to put the garage.
I'm not planning to put up a garage,
Your ADU, I'm sorry.
right?
The ADU would be, it's right next to that.
Okay.
So in her testimony, she suggested that the ADU will create pretty extensive shadows in her backyard, and it's also right next to her house. She suggested that perhaps you move the ADU to the other corner at the back of the lot, evidently where the existing shed or garage is, more toward that corner of the lot.
And what, put the parking on the other side?
Perhaps. She's nodding yes.
Well, first of all, she doesn't have a backyard. If it's the house I'm thinking of, she has a side yard. And with a 5-foot setback, and her place has a setback. I don't see how that would create any kind of a shadow. It just seemed to make more sense to put it where, where I proposed. And to be able to pull into the driveway, to be able to park easier. If we put the parking on the other side, it would be a much sharper angle for a car to pull in. It would be, they basically almost turn into the garage, and they have something like 6 trash barrels there because there's like a sixplex there on the corner. And so that whole section there is filled with trash barrels, and you'd be trying to pull a car around all of these trash barrels rather than around a fence that I'm going to leave, that I propose to leave, that'll be all the ways along the side of the house, with the 5-foot setback, and then around that to pull into the parking. So that's the way I proposed it. Did she have another objection I couldn't hear? I'm sorry to ask to repeat that, but
Yeah, I think that was the chief kind of comment that she had, to paraphrase her. And I believe it's not necessarily for her yard, but it's for her living space that's on that side of her house, and the shadow that would the shadow that the new building would create.
Are there even any windows on the back end of your garage? It's my house. It's a garage, but it's your house. I know that, but it was a garage. And are there any even windows on the very back side? Yes. Pardon? Yes. I can't see what that's in. If there's a tree there that's been there that we wouldn't propose taking out, that's a little bit farther in on the property, I'm sure that would, gives more shadow than any, building would be that's 5 feet in, from the fence. And if she's 5 feet the other way, we're talking about 10 feet, basically. I don't know. I don't understand.
Okay. Are there any further questions for the applicant? Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
One
Ma'am?
moment.
Ms. Noble, can I speak to you for just a moment? Thank you.
Oh, you did? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're
I thought
fine.
you
It's
said
a little bit
no.
hard to hear out there, I know. Could you tell me why you're proposing the height that's slightly taller than your primary structure on the site?
Like 1 foot.
Yeah.
I have built the same house in the back of my house. Mine is an ADU that's used, and I just wanted to use the same plans basically.
Mm.
But, a foot is, I don't even care if it's a foot shorter. It wouldn't make any difference. If you look around the neighborhood, there are many people that have added garages and ADUs that are taller than their house by several feet. So, we're talking this much.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Any other question?
Mr. Chair, ma'am, so to be clear, you're not amenable to swapping the location of the ADU on the site plan?
I guess not. To me, it makes no sense. And it would detract from, the accessibility.
Okay, thank you.
One more question for you. Do you happen to know what the slope is, the roof slope on the existing house?
I mean, the peak.
Well, there are some common ratios. The new ADU you've proposed at 6 and 12, a 6 and 12 slope. 4 and 12 is also a slope that's often used in residential construction. Typically, you will see it in houses that look more like of the age that this house is, a 4 and 12 slope. I can't tell by visual sight what that slope is of the existing, but
I'm not sure. That's happens to be the slope that's on the other one that I built, and
right.
so I just use that.
Okay.
I don't know if you can't tell from the pictures. The house has a slope like this.
Yeah, I'm looking at that front elevation with the garage and the blue truck parked in front. I'm just wondering about possibly reducing the slope of the ADU from 6 and 12 to 4 and 12 that might alleviate some of the neighbors' concern, but.
That would be fine with me. I don't think that would make much difference.
Okay. Any further questions for the applicant? Great. Thank you. With that, we will close the public hearing and render a decision. With that, I will open the floor to the commission for discussion. Or a motion.
Well, I guess I'll start with discussion, Mr. Chair. I kind of liked where Commissioner Owens was going with, could we just bring this in line with the house so it actually meets the guidelines in terms of the height requirement? And I think that solves a lot of problems in terms of the shadow it's going to cast too. I don't know enough about the slopes to know if that will make a big impact as well, but if it would, and she seems amenable to it, seems like a solution that solves everybody's concerns.
Mr. Chair, I can't pull up the picture that shows any kind of elevation. Does it show you the width of the building so you would know the difference between a 6 and 12 and a 4 and 12? Or is it up, can they put it up there? I don't have it, sorry. Yeah, I don't know. But on the plans, there's, I mean, if it's a 20-foot building and it's 10 feet to the peak?
So the plans for the new ADU show, call out a 6 and 12 slope.
Oh, I see. Okay. 20 feet. So you could go to a 3 and 12 pitch and still use conventional shingles, and that's would lower the height quite a bit. So they have some room to maneuver and then would lower the shading of the other house. That's just my 2 cents. The lowering would, I think, would be helpful to be within the guidelines of the height restriction of the existing house. Kind of help be amenable to what the neighbor's complaint is, but you know, I understand why she doesn't want to site it on the other side of the property.
Mr. Chairman, I would support a motion from Commissioner Sales, if you want to do that.
Motion to propose the height restriction?
The height restriction, the 3 and 12 slope.
Mr. Chair, I propose an amendment to restrict the pitch of the roof to a 3 and 12 pitch to meet the height guidelines. Is that what we're doing? Can we approve it? Can we approve DRH 24000062 with the change of the roof pitch?
To a 3 and 12 slope?
Correct.
With all other staff
Correct.
recommendations.
This is the most I've talked
Yes,
at one of
yes.
these meetings, so I'm just.
We appreciate it.
But this is,
Thank you for
I
doing
mean,
that.
this is my zone here, so I'm
Yes.
just saying,
Good.
I make that motion.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there a
Yes.
second?
Can you repeat the motion, just for clarification?
I make a motion for DRH 24-00062 for the 808 East Jefferson to restrict the height to a 3 and 12 pitch to come below the existing, or to at least not exceed the existing structure on the property. With all the other staff approvals.
Conditions. and-
Contingencies, conditions. Yes.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion. and
Mr.
a-
Chair,
Yes.
sorry, before we call the vote, it's hard for me to see since I'm not there in person, so I apologize. But can you confirm or state if this motion, this solution to reducing the pitch height would be amenable to the neighbor?
What was that? Oh, it's,
Just maybe a simple nod, yes or no.
I don't think she knows what it's going to do to her.
I think there were, before that height was 6 months, the included light, from the Lene Poland. I honestly have to look at this one to figure out. I'm like, quick calculation about 4 months, but there's no.
so,
Mr. Chairman, just a reminder, the public hearing is closed.
great. So Commissioner Montoto, the public hearing is closed.
No, I understand that. I'm just asking if this seems like a amenable solution from your perspective to the neighbor. Since I'm not there in person and the cameras are pointed at the commission, I can't see into the crowd, so it's hard for me to gauge.
So the public hearing is closed, but the neighbor does not have a very happy look on her face.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor and a second. Commissioner Montoto, do you have any other comments at this time?
I guess my initial thought is that, and I fully empathize with Miss Snowball's situation. I'm honestly a very close neighbor, maybe, a few blocks away, but we have a very similar situation in our family. And I can fully understand the need for an ADA accessible ADU. That being said, I do think that there is room for some flexibility, especially given the fact that there is some concerns, valid concerns, frankly, from a neighbor. And I felt that maybe this opportunity would have been a good one to resolve some of those issues. But if it seems like this is the motion presented forward, then I'll vote, how I see fit.
Very good.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
could we continue discussion for a moment then based on that?
Yes.
Could we please see the site plan pulled up? The aerial of the site, if you would. Yeah, perfect. So it sounds like the big issue that we're running into now is that access off the alley would be more difficult from one side of the site than the other side. It sounds like because of the trash placement.
That was my understanding from the applicant. Yes.
And Mr. Chair, if I may just clarify with a question, there is a driveway on the front of the property. Is that correct?
That's what I see on the aerial photograph.
With a curb cut.
Yes, on the street.
So
street frontage,
on the
yeah.
street, yes, on the street side, the Jefferson side. So I guess, and maybe I should have proposed this question to the applicant during the public hearing, and I apologize for not doing that. But how often will that alley parking be utilized if there is a front driveway for car parking?
Somehow in my head, I would assume that the parking in the rear is for the ADU occupant instead of parking at the street and then walking all the way to the back of the property for access to the ADU.
Well, yes, I totally agree. But it sounds like if this is a family caregiving type of situation, that, I don't know, maybe that's something that the family could work out in the event of just being courteous neighbors. But if logistically, long-term, it doesn't make sense to do that, I fully, respect that and understand that. I'm just trying to go to bat for the neighbor. Because this seems like it could very easily be adjusted. So, yeah.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion with the commission? Or any other further considerations? We do have a motion and second on the floor.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Staff, could we please see now the site plan? And could you clarify for us the adjustment to the parking that needs to take place?
Yes, that site plan, as you can see there, and that parking space is basically, when it's constructed, will need to be shifted. I think I wrote 6 feet in the staff report to have the 22-foot backup space, and that includes the length of the alley. And this 16 is a 16-foot wide alley, so 16 and 6 is to 22. So they'll basically be shifting that parking pad, and they can have like pervious paving stones or something to lead to the pad. It doesn't have to be all paved, but the pad just has to do that to meet to meet the backup requirement. Just a minor change.
Thank you for clarifying that for me. It appears to me that there's some space between where the ADU is proposed and where the parking pad is located. There could be some wiggle room, just that the ADU is pushed slightly towards that parking pad, unless I hear any complaints from staff on that front.
Yes, it could be shifted. I'd also add, or if I may add, I know this is beyond the question, the slope of the roof for this ADU is angled towards that side yard, and that may have an effect on the actual solar impact because it's not a block of a structure, and the sun will be shining at a shallow angle, and more often than not will be pushing through to actually light the neighbor's property. More than it kind of just seems when you hear a height and aren't thinking about the orientation of a building. I just thought I'd throw that out there too. But yes, that could be shifted a couple or few feet to the east towards the parking pad.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chair, I guess my thoughts on this would be that there's a couple more things we could do to slightly adjust the impact on the neighbor, just by citing, even though if we move that ADU just slightly towards the existing parking pad, it doesn't adjust the angle of the parking pad at all, gives a couple extra feet to the setback, like the applicant was saying that there's already an existing setback on both sides. We could add, it looks like maybe 2 feet at least, pushing it over and still having a little bit of space there. Unclear exactly what the dimensions of that are, but that's a little bit of extra space. And given the guidance from staff that the slope would not significantly increase that level, we might be able to adjust slightly with further discussion to reduce the impact slightly. Commissioner Montoto, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, like I said earlier, it's hard for me to gauge because I can't see into the audience, what the like body language of the neighbor is. But I think if we can definitely make additional adjustments, I would be more inclined to support the motion.
Commissioner Owens, if you look at the site plan, it has 41 feet. The house is 20 feet. You've got 5 feet of setbacks on each side, which is 30, plus another 9 for the parking pad. There's actually only like a foot or 2 you could slide it over at most, but you could still do it mathematically. I don't know what it looks like on the ground.
I mean, I would support flipping the two, the ADU and the parking pad. Because just looking at the site plan, I think moving the ADU to the other side, it would actually be a better fit. Sitting next to the other building on the other side, on the other lot, and giving a little bit more breathing room to that smaller house in the corner.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I guess the only concern I have is that the applicant did state that there are all of those trash cans lined up on that side. And I personally can totally understand not wanting to run into a bunch of trash cans, or if there are mobility issues, having to get out and move trash cans every time you want to get into your driveway could be very frustrating. I am sympathetic though to the neighbor, and I want to do as much as possible to accommodate their concerns. So I'd be supportive of either, just depending on how we want to move forward. But I think there's enough of an adjustment that if it's moved over slightly and the height is reduced slightly, I would be okay with that from my perspective.
Mr. Commissioner? Yes. So I'm also would be concerned that if you then were to flip the proposed location, what about the neighbor to the east? Would then come voice concerns there on their side? I don't know what the site looks like. The image, if there's a neighbor affected, but does that just switch the concern to the other side?
I was just trying to look at that very.
It
So
looks like from
maybe
the
the-
aerial, if there's a garage right there next to.
Now, I guess,
Yeah.
yeah. So maybe the concern is that, or maybe the solution is to, as Commissioner Owens said, to just split the difference to the parking pad, even if it's pretty tight, to try to be amenable and lower the height as a compromise to the neighbor's concerns, while allowing Miss Snowball to build her property.
Mr. Chair, on that note, since there's been a second to the motion, is it amendable at this point, or do we need to vote first?
That's a great question. Would there need to be a withdrawal or a friendly motion, friendly amendment? How does that work?
Well, there's a motion and a second on the table. And that motion is to approve the proposal with a reduced slope and all of the staff recommendations. Now, if you want, so with a motion and a second, and the complexity of things, I think it would be cleanest to vote on that up or down, and then you can make another motion.
A fresh motion after
Fresh
that.
motion.
Okay. Is there any further discussion with the motion on the floor? Hearing none, clerk, would you please call the roll?
Montoto,
No.
Malloy,
No.
Otter,
Aye.
Parks,
Nay.
Owens,
Nay.
Sales,
Aye.
uh, 2 in favor, 4 opposed, motion fails.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could propose a motion?
Yes.
Okay. Move to approve item DRH 24-00062 with the additional conditions of approval that the height not exceed that of the primary dwelling, the slope is reduced to 3/12, and the structure is moved 2 feet to the east or as close as possible to the parking pad.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion to this motion? Hearing none, clerk, could you please call the roll?
Montoto,
No.
Malloy,
Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
Parks,
Aye.
Owens,
Aye.
Sales,
Aye.
5 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. All right, moving to our next item on the agenda. Next up is DRH 24-00073 at 2007 and 2009 North 13th Street. We will now hear from staff.
Here's the aerial map that shows where the property is located in the north end. This is the site plan showing the location of the garage and the duplex, followed by the floor plan for the first floor and the second floor. Here are the elevations. It appears most of the windows are proposed to be sliders. This is discouraged on visible areas of the structure. A condition of approval is included requiring the windows visible from the street to be either single or double hung or casements. The glass door, the balcony is sliding glass door. A condition of approval has been included requiring this to be a French style door instead. The current 1-story duplex has a flat roof, and the addition of a second story will incorporate a shallow hipped roof. A balcony will be included on the front elevation at the second level. Here are the remaining elevations. The detached 2-story garage will be designed similar to the house with a similar style hipped roof. The garage will have 3 parking bays and an extra uncovered parking space that will be located to the south of the garage. The code requires only 2 parking spaces for duplexes in this modern code. The garage will be about 3 feet shorter than the peak of the height of the duplex. Here are the photographs of the existing 1-story duplex, as well as a rendering of the elevation showing the proposed addition in relation to neighboring residences. This is a reapplication of the previously approved DRH 20-00403 that expired due to inaction for a period that exceeded 2 years as per our code. The peak height of the house will increase from 8 feet to about 24 feet. This is a significant increase in height. However, it is not out of character with the neighborhood and relatively modest for a 2-story structure. Both adjacent houses are 1-story, but there are 1.5 and full 2-story structures located along the block and immediate neighborhood. All setback requirements have been met. Lot coverage will increase from 34 to 35%, which is our desired, typically desired max. With that, staff recommends approval of this application and will stand for any questions.
Any questions from the commission? Thank you. Is the applicant present? Great. Welcome. Start with your name and address.
You bet.
Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Hans German. I live at 2007 North 13th Street, 83702 in Boise. I want to first thank Richard Jarvis, Mr. Chair, and the members of the Historic Commission for your time this evening and for your consideration of our proposal. This is an unchanged resubmittal of a previously approved project. Our initial project had the unanimous support and approval by the city, the Historic Commission, as well as Nina. Unfortunately for Jessica, my wife, and I, this was in the depths of the COVID pandemic. As we all remember, prices of building materials soared and labor was not available. My wife Jessica and I bought our house in 2007. I came to Boise in 2002 to work for the Boise Smoke Jumpers based at the National Interagency Fire Center. I'm a career wildland firefighter, with this being my 28th year fighting fires. My wife Jessica has 30 years in her field as a wilderness, backcountry, and river guide here in Idaho. We consider ourselves fortunate to be a part of the North End neighborhood. In our opinion, one of the neighborhoods vital to the city's connection to its history. Our modest, flat-roofed duplex was a slumlord's dream for most of its life before we bought it. Upon moving in, my wife and I set to turn an abused rental into a comfortable living space for both units. Over several years, we've worked very hard to turn it into a vision of attractiveness, peace, and calm. Our drought-tolerant native landscaping has been featured in the Idaho Statesman, as well as in a published gardening book as an example of responsible landscaping in this region. Jessica and I always strive to add positive value to the North End, and we believe our proposal does the same. We have a clear and well-intentioned goal in mind with this project. Being a non-contributing structure, we know it could be torn down and turned into a single-family house. However, we feel that it is more socially responsible to maintain and provide neighborhood housing. Per historic district guidelines, we'll take a property that is an example of inappropriate and make it an example of appropriate with respect to surrounding multifamily and single-family houses on the block. We are not proposing going into any setbacks, are requesting no variances, and are proposing a maximum roof height 11 feet below that allowed. We already have city staff level approval for off-street parking dimensions which exceed city code requirements and remain well clear of all side setbacks. Additionally, with my current position as a firefighting pilot for the Bureau of Land Management, I am required by federal policy to have dedicated home office space. In our 840 square foot home, this means that we no longer have a guest bedroom for visiting family and friends. Our proposal allows for dedicated home office space and provides for a guest bedroom. It also allows us to offer these same home features for another family in the other unit. In conclusion, we're asking for the opportunity to create a space to thrive that will be a benefit to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission for the applicant?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
could I ask, do you know what the height of your neighbor's structures are? Are they taller or shorter than this proposed one?
The neighbors, so the neighbors directly adjacent to
Yeah,
us or?
yeah, you're just your closest ones.
Yeah, I believe the neighbors directly adjacent to us. I think I haven't taken a measuring tape. I know
Yeah.
it's over 20 feet.
Okay.
The two houses to our north,
Mhm.
they are permitted a story and a half.
Okay.
And so it requires 5 to 6 steps up to enter their front door.
Mm-hmm.
The peak of our roof as it stands is from the sidewalk on 13th Street. If you were to look at the peak of that roof, it's 7 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And the peak of our roof stands at our neighbor's door handle.
Mm-hmm.
If you move north from those two row houses, you've got, I believe they're considered townhouses. They're separately
Mhm.
owned. And the peak of those roofs are probably around 24 feet.
Okay.
If you move north again, there's a very large massed duplex on the corner of 13th and Hazel. And I would say that's probably 24, 25, maybe even 26 feet.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Any further questions from the commission? Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
So a representative of the neighborhood association present.
Hi, Sandra Herman, 1404 North 7th Street. Chairman and Commissioners, we think that the design will help the structure blend with the block face a little better. This house will be taller than the neighboring homes to the north, and it will appear much bigger than it is currently. We think the balcony could be screened a bit to provide privacy for the neighbors. The neighbor to the north has a beautiful garden and they are concerned about shading. The new structure will shade some of their property from sunlight in the winter months, but after reviewing the property, we feel it will get adequate light during the growing season. The applicant has taken some consideration for the neighbor and the design has limited some of the impacts. This home could have been designed with dormers to help reduce the overall mass and height, but this project was previously approved and a redesign may result in an undue hardship for the applicant. We recommend permeable paving and downshielded lighting. Nina would like to remind the homeowners and contractors that materials listed within the accepted plans are part of an agreed upon contract with the city. It is important to adhere to the materials as listed, as they are part of the standards in the historic neighborhood. Changing materials without consulting the city could result in fines, delays, and mitigation at the contractor or homeowner's expense. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
You said that the design helped mitigate some of the impacts on the neighbor. Could you expand upon that slightly?
Just looking at their design a little bit, and I just briefly did it earlier today, and some of that is hearsay on my part, but the way that their house sits back a little bit gives a little bit more air and space. It doesn't come as close to the street as that north neighbor. So it does give a little bit there. And just a little bit of the change of the roof line sort of, I think, helps with that a little bit as well.
Great, thank you.
Chairman.
Yes.
I just have a quick question for staff. Under the new modern zoning code, I know there's new lighting requirements. Does that include down shielded lighting automatically?
That is my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Keep the night sky to the degree we can.
Okay, I don't have anyone signed up additionally to address this item. Is there anyone who did not sign up on the sign-up sheet or online for this item? Great. With that, the applicant has time for rebuttal. Is there anything else you would like to add or say in reinforcement or contrary to what the neighborhood association has addressed?
Just answer any questions you might have. We changed the design initially back 2.5 years ago to make sure to cover all issues because we know how much Kim values her garden and we value it too because we get tomatoes and things from it. So we've done everything we possibly can and still try to maintain like the duplex and where we what the city had wanted before was a little bit of more of a breakup. So that's where like the deck coming off the front and the deck coming up the side kind of broke it up a little bit just visually. Other than that,
I'll elaborate on what Nina was referring to as far as our consideration for the neighbor to the north side. From the original architectural plan that our architect brought to the city, on that north side, we pulled the majority of that north wall in an additional 2 feet.
which is an added pain in the ass, I will just
Um,
add
and-
to
and
structural
then- and then
and
on-
added costs.
And then on the
but we
south
did it.
side, there's a large portion of that south wall that's pulled in an additional 2 feet. It was a considerable
It's gonna
architectural
cost a lot of
change,
money,
but
we're doing it
it's,
for them.
Right.
but that's, I think, what she may have been referring to. We did go through that process with the architect to do, considering the footprint, absolutely everything we could. And it's a very low slung 412 pitch hip roof. And the concept behind that is that there's only one high point. Everything on the roof height beyond that comes down from there.
Great. Two quick things. One, if you could state your name and address for the
sorry.
record. I'm guessing you two go together, so in
case
some
you
way,
haven't
in
noticed.
some way.
Yeah,
So,
I'm Jessica Courtwright. I live at 2007 North 13th.
great. Thank you. And with that, any other further questions for the applicant?
I have one question. Would you be open to using permeable paving?
Oh, all day.
Okay.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah, and we had already agreed to like, instead of the sliders upstairs, like it was gonna be, like it was already gonna be exactly what it needed to be. It's just, guess the plans didn't get updated or something, but
Yeah,
the proposal towards the end was we were gonna adjust everything that needed to be adjusted.
Okay.
And definitely night sky. I'm a big night sky person.
Yeah, and we definitely agree to all prior requirements regarding anything street facing being a French door, not a slider, and windows being appropriately designed as well.
Any further questions? Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
With that, we'll close the public hearing and discuss as commission, or I'll entertain a motion.
I think I'll make a motion. I move to approve DRH 24-00073 with the staff recommendations of approval, as well as the use of permeable paving.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Otter. Motion and a second. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
Parks,
Aye.
Owens,
Aye.
Sales,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. That concludes our agenda, and I will call us adjourned.